Sign reject.
Sponsored by government.
Sign bill. Sign the bill. Reject. Rejected. Rejected. Sign. Reject.
Haribu. Tumetenga milioni ngapi? Tumetenga milioni mbili. Tumetenga milioni mbili ya
Rejected. Mtu wa kutenga.
Ametutengea.
Hii kiti ni bilioni ngapi?
Mimi nataka kwa museum yangu.
Rejected.
In 1885, we have never been free since then. We still are a nation that has refused to address. We have refused to address all the historical injustices that have been committed in this country. What's wrong with Just one nothing more, nothing less. And we have a right to be heard. We have a right to speak out. It's not even a constitutional right. It's a God-given right. God has given us the breath to speak. And He has given us the mind to think. So, if we see evil happening in society,
On the 21st of November 2024, a wave of youthful energy is set to sweep across Kenya as Gen Z takes a stand. Boldly declaring, "We will occupy everywhere," this statement, both powerful and symbolic, reflects a generation ready to challenge the status quo and demand systemic change. Kenya's Gen Z, born in the late 1990s and early 2000s, is coming of age in a time of political turbulence, economic challenges, and technological revolution. With unemployment rates high and social inequality persistent, this generation refuses to accept business as usual. They have embraced digital platforms to amplify their voices, organize movements, and demand accountability. The date, November 21st, has not been randomly chosen. It signifies a tipping point for youth activism in Kenya, inspired by the global youth movement and fueled by dissatisfaction with leadership and governance. Among their grievances is the rejection of the contentious finance bill, which they argue places an undue economic burden on ordinary citizens and worsens their already precarious situation. Gen Z's reliance on social media has transformed platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram into powerful tools for mobilization. Hashtags such as #OccupyKenya and #GenZRevolution have already started trending, with young people sharing their frustrations, hopes, and plans for the day. The rejection of the finance bill has been a central theme, with many calling for a repeal and a re-evaluation of Kenya's fiscal priorities. Kenya's youth make up over 60% of the population, yet their voices often go unheard in national discourse. Many feel disillusioned by leaders who promise reforms but fail to deliver. November 21st could mark the moment when young people translate frustration into action, particularly against policies they see as exacerbating inequality, like the finance bill. This movement isn't happening in isolation. Gen Z in Kenya draws inspiration from youth-led protests worldwide, from the Fridays for Future climate strikes to End SARS in Nigeria. These movements demonstrate the power of organized, peaceful resistance in effecting change. Occupy Everywhere is both a literal and figurative call. On one hand, it could involve physical demonstrations in public spaces. On the other, it signifies reclaiming control over the narrative, the future, and the systems that govern Kenya. Rejection of the finance bill underscores their commitment to challenging policies that they believe harm the country's most vulnerable. Organizing such a large-scale movement is no small feat. Questions about logistics, leadership, and security loom large. The government may also respond with resistance, citing public order concerns. Still, the rejection of the finance bill is a unifying factor that could galvanize even broader support. Kenya's universities and colleges have historically been hotbeds of activism. With Gen Z comprising the majority of students, these institutions are likely to play a significant role in shaping the movement. Student unions, discussion forums, and activist groups could provide the organizational backbone. The finance bill has been a focal point of these discussions, with many viewing it as a direct attack on their economic prospects. The private sector may also find itself impacted, as Gen Z increasingly demands accountability not just from the government, but also from corporations. Ethical practices, youth employment, and social responsibility are likely to come under scrutiny, alongside any perceived support for the finance bill. Gen Z's call to occupy everywhere reflects their deep frustration with economic inequalities. The rising cost of living, lack of job opportunities, and barriers to entrepreneurship have left many feeling excluded from Kenya's economic growth. The finance bill, seen as favouring the elite, has only deepened this discontent. This movement is also a call for environmental justice. With climate change disproportionately affecting African nations, Gen Z is demanding sustainable policies and action to protect Kenya's natural resources. Cultural identity plays a significant role in this movement. Gen Z seeks to redefine what it means to be Kenyan, emphasizing unity and diversity while rejecting tribalism and other divisive narratives. Their rejection of the finance bill represents a broader call to move beyond outdated policies and embrace solutions that prioritize inclusivity. The role of art and music cannot be underestimated. Kenya's creative youth are using poetry, music, and visual arts to communicate their struggles and aspirations, ensuring that their message resonates beyond political spheres. Their art often critiques the finance bill and other policies that perpetuate systemic injustice. The movement poses a significant challenge to political leaders. It forces them to reconsider their policies, rhetoric, and relationship with the youth. Failure to engage meaningfully with Gen Z, especially on contentious issues like the finance bill, could result in a loss of political legitimacy. While the movement is youth-driven, it has the potential to unite all generations. Parents, teachers, and community leaders may find common cause in addressing the grievances that affect society as a whole, including the burdens of the finance bill. November 21, 2024 may be remembered as a watershed moment for Kenya. It represents the possibility of a brighter future led by a generation that refuses to be ignored. Whether this movement succeeds or faces resistance, its impact will undoubtedly shape the country's socio-political landscape for years to come.